Hi, my name's Tom. Welcome to episode 4 of The Row, a series that combines the documentation of a fundraising challenge I'm undertaking and conversations with people of note regarding mental health. I'm raising money for the mental health service Shout, the UK's first and only free confidential 24/7 text messaging service for anyone who is struggling to cope. For more detail about the challenge, how you can help Shout and how to donate to the challenge, please click on the link to the Just Giving page in the description below. Thank you. In this episode, I'm at Shout's offices to talk to Grace Liley, Senior Marketing and Communications Officer at Mental Health Innovations, Shout's registered charity. Since embarking on this challenge and the YouTube series, it's been important for me to dig a bit deeper at Shout and spotlight their services in more detail. Grace has kindly taken me up on just that, giving us insight on exactly what Shout do and why, what makes them different to other services, what the future holds for the charity, and how volunteers make it all happen. Hi Grace.
Hi Tom. Welcome.
Thank you so much for taking the time today to talk to me about mental health and everything at Shout and the Mix. Good place to start, I find, with these conversations is just to kind of get a sense of who I'm talking to. Could you give us an introduction about you, your role, and what you do at the charity?
Yes, so I'm Grace. I'm the Senior Marketing and Communications Officer at Mental Health Innovations, but mainly my job is around running the Shout consumer sort of social media channels. So creating the content for those and sort of planning all of that out and what's going to go out, and sort of helping with some of the fundraising stuff. So I am quite across like all the different people who are fundraising for Shout, and that's probably the main bits, and just helping different teams like get their different messages out, whether that's like the volunteer recruitment team, helping them promote. They might have like a webinar, a training or introduction webinar, or the data teams, they're always coming up with a lot of really interesting statistics and things like that. So getting that out as well.
So it feels like you've got a good view across a lot of the charity. I guess with the size of the charity as well, you see a lot of different things, and whilst you have your role, you may have to put a different hat on from time to time.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Every now and then I'll be organising a webinar. I think it all comes within sort of like the comms side of things, but I suppose maybe different hats in terms of trying to work out the best way to communicate like for different teams. Yeah. Great.
I think you touched on it there slightly, but probably what is important and something I've had to learn as well, I think it's happened also in the time that I've been doing the challenge. It's not just Shout we're talking about here, is it? It's also the Mix, but the actual charity is Mental Health Innovations. Can you give us a bit more an idea of that and the different services behind it and different things that Mental Health Innovations are actually trying to do?
Yeah, so Mental Health Innovations, we started out with the Shout service, and so it's sort of like the umbrella charity that's like powering Shout and the Mix, and at the moment, that's sort of the idea, is like to sort of expand out our offering so that we can help more people in different sort of stages of like where they might be in their, I guess, journey with mental health. I don't know if that's like the right description for it, but I think we want to have sort of like more early intervention kind of services and offerings as well, so that we can meet people in all different places, like not just sort of when they're in crisis, or anyone can text Shout no matter how they feel, but that's sort of the idea. So, and the Mix has obviously like they're a massive sort of resource platform. We have quite a lot of resources on the Shout website as well, but the Mix has even more. It's like all sort of for young people, and just developing sort of more services with them. So we've got the peer chat service that's coming soon, and different sort of like discussion boards and just ways for young people to sort of talk to each other and connect and share experiences.
Could you tell us a bit more about the peer chat then, if that's coming soon?
Yeah, actually, when I say coming soon, I'm not quite sure how soon, but it's so I think it's sort of based on actually a service that is in Australia. I think it's Lifeline that does it, but it's just sort of around. It's like sort of run by young people, and they're sort of like deciding on like how it looks, and like maybe sort of how the conversations happen, but it'll be sort of similar to the shout service in that all the volunteers who come on board, they are young, but they're still going to be trained and sort of like supervised by our clinical team, and then overseen as well by our safeguarding team. Okay. To just make sure that if anything really serious comes up, that's all, like, that's going to be sort of okay and like reported to the right places. But yeah, it just means that like young people can book in for a 50-minute session to just speak to someone who's like them about just sort of shared experiences. And yeah, I think the idea is that it's like you don't have to sort of be in a crisis when you do that. You can just be sort of, you know, chatting through something that just whatever you're sort of going through. I mean, like obviously like exam stress, a lot of like relationships things sort of come up as well. Just all different kind of issues that come up in life that can bring up sort of like feelings that are, I guess, harder to deal with, but it's like not worth dealing with them on your own.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. I think often when you talk about mental health, a lot of people that haven't necessarily explored looking into mental health previously will often think it's these huge traumatic experiences when actually it doesn't discriminate on what the things are or the triggers of things, and actually it's all relative to your own life. So I think exam stress is a really good example, because that is huge for young people. You know, it could be career stuff as you're older, but it's definitely offering that holistic view of life support, isn't it, in terms of how that could be for mental health. Yeah,
I definitely do notice when some people, especially for example men, talk about their mental health. I think they talk about it more in terms of like the situations that are going on in their lives, if that makes sense. Like rather than saying sort of straight out like I'm feeling down, I'm feeling anxious, they'll say, I don't know, like I'm in a lot of debt and I'm feeling a lot of pressure to like provide for my family, like sort of more things like that. And so it's like you can sort of take from what they're saying about what's going on that like, okay, that is going to be making you feel like really anxious, worried, stressed, overwhelmed, I don't know, all those sort of like feelings that we're sort of always talking about that maybe they don't quite identify with. But exactly, there's constantly things in life that are going to make you feel just not the best.
That's really interesting. I mean, I'm obviously thinking about my own experience, and I'm probably bang on the money for that, where, you know, it's situational or something's happened, and I've probably only really learned through therapy about exactly what you're saying, talking about how I'm feeling, or, you know, this is my, you know, and understanding that all feelings are valid. You know, even if I think, I shouldn't be angry, you know, I still felt angry or upset or whatever it may be. And it's interesting to hear that it's probably more common in males as well. And it reminds me of a story I had I heard my nephew when he goes to primary school. Quite often, before they start their day, their teacher has like a chart on the wall, and it will have different colours, and it will say like, what colour are you feeling today? And then they'd say why. And it's just introducing at a young age, I guess, you know, to talk about feelings, which is so important because it just wasn't a thing when I was growing up.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely noticed that as well. We filmed a video at a school recently with the mix. And we were just in this room where there were just all these sort of like feelings kind of listed everywhere. And it was just such a different classroom than anything I'd ever seen before. Totally. But it's good to see that people are sort of talking about it so much earlier on. And I was saying to that teacher who had put that classroom together that I was just so curious to see how that generation is when they're older, having sort of from such a young age learnt how to name how they're feeling.
I mean, it's setting up the actual framework, and maybe even subconsciously. You know, it's like that's just a thing that you do, rather than not doing it when you're older and trying to figure it out when your framework is very much a foundation. So I mean, that's definitely been something I've been learning more recently, but definitely feeling the benefit for it. So I'm very much an advocate for primary school kids doing that. I think that's really important. So I guess with Shout specifically, I think just people following my journey so far or may stumble across this and do a bit of research on the stuff that I've done, they're probably more familiar with Shout and the service of that more specifically. So that is obviously a text messaging service for anyone that is struggling and needs support. Could you put a bit more flesh on the bones of that as such, and just talk about this service for Shout more specifically?
Yeah, so it's the UK's only tech support service that's available free 24/7 for anybody in the UK. I mean, yeah, it's run by mostly sort of volunteers. We've got about 4,000 volunteers who are not exactly working on the service, but volunteering for the service. And then we've got our supervisors as well, who are sort of overseeing all the conversations that are happening, and kind of like I mentioned before, the safeguarding team. I mean, that's sort of like how it kind of runs. And then I suppose we've got, it's a great service that sort of, we've got a lot of people who are from the LGBTQ community that like sort of reach out to us a lot. And I mean, I guess like always just trying to make sure our service is like reaching all these different communities and like the people who need it most, often through different partners, but through our socials as well.
Because I guess we've spoken a lot about young people, but actually you don't have to be a young person to use the service, right?
No, it's for everybody. We do get a lot of young people who do use it because I think it's easier to text than call, and that's like how a lot of young people feel. But there's also just like a lot of situations too where it's better to be silent. Like I think some again, men have said that they prefer the like texting kind of format because I don't know, I think maybe some people aren't ready to vocalize how they're feeling, especially like when they feel like maybe it is quite serious. So I think it's like 40 to 50% of people haven't spoken to anyone else yet when they reach out to Shout, and sort of the service gives them sort of like the next steps or that they need, or like talks them through that and talks them through like who they might want to speak to about it. That's probably, I didn't really mention like how the conversations sort of work. So basically the idea is that people come to us in what we would call like a hot moment, like that sort of moment of like maybe crisis, or just like that sort of enough is enough, like I need to do something sort of moment. And then our volunteers will take them to a place of calm, usually over about like 40 minutes. But mostly through, just like hearing them and getting an understanding of what they're going through, and then working with those texters to just basically come up with a plan. Like, and it's like, it's really the texter's plan for what they're going to do next, but the volunteer just sort of guides them to get there.
Nice.
And usually the idea is like not everything's fixed, but it's just sort of like an in the moment, halfway, like this is what you're going to do next.
I think the more I kind of interact with you guys and work with you guys on the fundraising efforts, just the idea of text is really interesting to me. So I guess, I have an interest in communication. I work in marketing, I like writing, all of that sort of stuff. And one thing I always think is, and again, maybe we're not necessarily taught this when we're younger, but we all communicate effectively in different ways. And quite formally, previously, you would have to go through certain channels, which is obviously picking up a phone or talking. But actually, someone might be better communicator in text, and expressing themselves in that way, in a format like you say, where they can do that on their own. And quite often in that moment of crisis, they don't want to necessarily publicise that, whether that is the close one, friends and family, and going through that process when you can just simply do the text and it's kind of sent.
There are a lot of situations where people sort of mention how text was better. Like one of the people who, she's like a volunteer now, but she talks about how she first texted Shout and it was just so good because she was, in a loud kind of uni dorm situation or something like that, and she just felt like she couldn't actually speak out loud. It was like 3 a.m. or something, and so it was so good for her in that situation. Also, we have quite a lot of like, compared to like the population that's autistic versus the number of people, like the percentage of our texters who are autistic, that's like they're kind of overrepresented. It's just like it's a much better option for them, also for people who are deaf. Yeah, there's quite a few different communities where text is definitely the clear better option for them, and so we're really glad that we can offer a 24 service that's there for them when they need it. Yeah.
Again, in those moments, the hot moments you said,
yeah,
where people need the help, again, those moments aren't going to look at a clock, and they just happen when they happen. So the fact that it's 24/7 is actually incredible. You know, what an amazing resource that is. And I guess I was going to ask the question next. You know, what in your view makes Shout different from other services? I mean, obviously we've spoken about the text, but and 24/7.
Yeah,
that kind of sums it up quite nicely. And
that is like they're the big kind of points on it.
Yeah, like the USP really.
Yeah.
But is there anything else that you would kind of say that Shout as a service, or even the mix, to be honest, or anything else that you kind of proud is different, or you kind of its innovations is in the charity name? Is there anything else you would kind of say is of interest?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I do think behind the service, everything, we're all, like our different teams are always trying to improve things and make things better. I'm always saying in our social media moderation comments, like, thank you so much for your feedback. And I know it sounds very, just like the usual customer service thing, but we really do care about your feedback. And yeah, just always looking into sort of ways to mostly sort of use technology to improve things. So we kind of revamped our volunteer training. It felt really recent, but maybe it's like about a year ago or something now. So yeah, I think that's quite a cool, and like the data as well, like sort of actually knowing the impact that we're having, and like knowing when, like that sort of like informs like which communities like do we need to focus more on, or like even, I don't know, like what times of day do we need to make sure we have like volunteers on, things like that. I think that's sort of like a side of things that maybe not everyone knows as much about, but yeah, just how everything that we do is just very informed by data and what we know, and like we really are trying to always improve things. And
I guess through texting and things like that, you're going to have lots of data that you can actually look at and analyse from, performance, when help is needed, hotspots of when you need more volunteers potentially, that sort of thing. Definitely.
And just like just sort of using that anonymised data as well to sort of understand mental health in the UK. Understand what are the key issues that people are sort of going through.
That's absolutely amazing. You spoke about volunteers there. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit. I know you initially volunteered a little bit when you first were at the charity. I guess what's a normal day for a volunteer that's working at Shout?
Yeah, so I mean, you would do like a 2 to 4 hour shift. We don't really encourage people to do anything longer than that. And a lot of the time it's not really during the day at all. A lot of the time it's late at night. Right. We do have volunteers as well in New Zealand who kind of cover those really early morning, like red eye sort of hours. But yeah, I mean, any volunteers that can do sort of like that late at night when we're, to be honest, really busy, because that is our point of difference. We're 24/7 and not every service is. So we are busier overnight when all those other hours aren't covered by a bunch of different services. But yeah, so you've got your 2 to 4 hour shift, you log in, like the texter will receive texts and they're texting from their phone, but where you would be on a computer or a laptop or something like that. As a volunteer, and we've got sort of like, we call it the platform. You go on there, and usually we let everyone know to message. It'll come up saying who your supervisor is, so you should send them a message and just say hello. If they sometimes message you first as well. I think that's something a lot of our volunteers say is sort of part of their experience as they jump on the platform, especially for the first time, and you'll just get a bunch of different messages from all the other volunteers who were on there. And your supervisor, like, you're just very sort of supported. Like, if you have sort of something, like, I don't know, sometimes you sort of are going around in a circle with a texter, or something has come up and you're just not sure how to deal with it, you can put it in the chat with the other volunteers, and they can all give you some advice on how to work with that, or your supervisor is just always there as well. I mean, when I first started, I was just constantly, I don't know, maybe this is not a good example, but I mean, just always messaging my supervisor, just saying like, is this okay? Like, have I done the right thing here? And they're really supportive and always there. And you get sort of like a big range of conversations and people like talking about different things. Sometimes it's like a very slow conversation you're sort of working through, and other times it's like someone comes in, they're just like piping hot, like I don't know, and you just like really feel the urgency. And I don't know, sometimes it can be a little bit scary, or like sometimes not scary, but you can just tell, maybe someone's just really angry, not at you, but like angry at someone else.
Yeah, of course.
And then it's just like, I don't know, it doesn't take long at all. It's like 15 minutes and they're just feeling better and they're like, thank you, see you later. You're like, bye.
But it kind of shows an example of the importance of the service, right? Because it does diffuse that for those people. And I can see it being, do people often regularly use it? I guess that's something I've never really thought about. I've often thought of like the real moments where we've said you might need something straight away, but I would imagine you would probably get regular texters.
We do have regular texters. I think I've got a stat down here that says something like, what did it say? Yeah, so last year we had 240,000 texters and 600,000 conversations. Wow. So it sounds like most of them have at least had 2 conversations. Which is, I mean, we sort of like say all the time, like if you ever need to text us again, please do. Yeah. So
going back to the volunteers more specifically, if someone is interested in volunteering, what should they do and how do they go about becoming one?
You can go to our website, giveusashout.org/volunteer, and then just it sort of talks about what else sort of goes into being a volunteer. We also have introductory webinars every month or so, and you could sort of join one of them, and then you can actually ask any questions. But you can also, if you had any questions, ask on social media, and we can reply to them there. And it's just a case of applying, and then within a couple of weeks, because I mean the application we do DBS checks, we check references, to just make sure, I mean it's pretty important, just like checking out who our volunteers are, for the sort of conversations that they're having. So after that, then you would go into your 25 weeks of training. It's all online. It can just be done at your own pace. It's like 100%, pretty much 100% digital. I think like at points you'll be sort of marked on certain exercises, but again, you just sort of do them when works for you. And and then next thing you know, you're clicking that new conversation button on the platform, which is a terrifying moment. But like I said, everyone's there to support you. So
it does sound like good camaraderie and team. Yeah. So there's that benefit of it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So it kind of shows like the real importance of volunteers to the charity and the services. It kind of feels like a real backbone of everything. But like we had a slight conversation about this before we started filming, but I guess thinking of my own employment, I get 2 volunteer days a year that I can use. I don't think I've ever used them, but I'm interested in going through this whole process of potentially doing that, whether that's at Shout or there's plenty of charities there. Is that something that could, it doesn't have to be doing those volunteers because you haven't done the training, but that is something that someone could get in touch with potentially and see how they can offer the different skills?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think if you have certain skills like that you would use at work, like design or marketing kind of skills, you could get in touch about that. But also I think we were talking before about how we put a lot of effort into sort of like saying thank you to our fundraise and something, and also to our volunteers. Like we really work hard to kind of maintain that community and make sure everyone feels the appreciation that we have for our fundraisers and our volunteers for all the work that they're doing. So sometimes we have people come in and volunteer and they're just sort of writing cards to our volunteers and thanking them for all the hours that they're putting in on the platform. So it's something you can do as well. Just sort of, I guess, depends on what you'd want your volunteer day to look like.
And it might sound like a small thing, but like, you know, as someone that's doing this, those personal and authentic touches have really helped me stick to the challenge and be a part of it. I felt, you know, very much a part of Shout in a way since I've started. So I think, you know, that's a volunteer day. There's no small task, is there? Everyone gets stuck in together, and that's more what it's really about.
Yeah.
Perfect. Love it. So in terms of your role more specifically, obviously you're doing a lot more about comms and things like that. I'm a really avid fan of storytelling, and I'm just really interested because I feel everyone's got a story. Now, in your role, you're obviously showing a lot of those stories. I mean, I'm just kind of intrigued about how you approach that, and you know, if there's any that have kind of stuck in your minds, or if there's any common things through these stories that come through, whether that be through fundraisers, people that have texted in, or even from volunteers. Appreciate it as a question without notice, so if you're trying to rack your brain a little bit. But yeah, anything more on the storytelling side I'm quite interested in.
As in just like some of the best stories I've heard, or
well,
things
yeah,
like
could
that.
be, or anything that is just kind of stuck in your mind, or a significant one, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many amazing ones of people sort of coming full circle. Heard one the other day, and hopefully he lets us publish it, and he'll, you know, talk about it everywhere for us. But we've actually got a staff member who's just come on board, who was previously a volunteer, and just, I mean, so many people get to use like the skills they've learned in the volunteer training and on the platform, just in their regular lives. And yeah, he said he had actually at some point spoken to someone who was like thinking about ending their life. He said they were on a bridge, and he had like, he just knew what to say sort of in that moment to help them sort of through that. So yeah, that was an amazing one. And yeah, I mean, yeah, there are lots of really sort of impactful stories. I mean, there's another person who his brother had died from suicide, like a younger brother. And I'm the eldest in my family, so this one really hits me pretty hard. I think he didn't have the best conversation with his brother before his brother died, and and like, you know, they're just like angry teenagers, and then that's something he's had to sort of live with forever. And so he ended up texting Shout because he just honestly dealing with the heaviness of that. Would have been just a lot. And Shout really sort of like helped him through that moment, and he's like a volunteer now, and like a really amazing advocate for us.
Amazing.
So
Is that, I feel I might be making an assumption here, is it quite common that people who've used the service go on to become volunteers?
Maybe it is. I mean, I haven't really like sort of, I guess we haven't really done a survey, or maybe we have. We might have. We do a lot of surveys, and we ask a lot of questions. Maybe I'll go back after this and be like, maybe this should be a question in the volunteer survey. But I mean, it sort of sounds like that when you sort of hear some of the stories from volunteers. It does sound like that. Or like even like a fundraiser who might have used the service becomes a fundraiser, and then they're like, actually, I'll become a volunteer now as well.
I could totally understand that. That's definitely crossed my mind. I think kind of makes sense too. And you know, it's interesting when you were saying there, just around the volunteers, where, you know, it could be 2 to 4 hour shift. You can genuinely see how that fits around your life, and that you can help offer that. You know? So it does sound appealing from that perspective. And I think I've learned so much through the process of doing this about mental health and everything with that, but also about Shout and the great things that it's done, just even in those stories that you were saying. So, you know, it does make you think of what impacts you can help people with, and, you know, that's what it's about at the end of the day, isn't it? Because potentially saving a life in that story is incredible.
Definitely. And we do have every year, I mean, this is on my stat sheet as well, let me take a look if I can see it. The amount of, so there are, last year we had 24,000 active rescues, so that's just like the amount of times that emergency services go out to someone that we're seriously worried about their life. We think it's like at imminent risk. And so, I mean, we don't really know, like we never get the numbers back on exactly how many people, like where we've seriously saved a life, but yeah, that's sort of like the number of people that, I mean, we might have saved a life there. And we do get actually a lot of messages as well from parents just sort of saying, like, I had no idea that my child was going through this until there were police knocking on the door the other night.
Oh, wow.
And just like they're just so grateful, like
well, that's really interesting, because I guess mental health for a lot of parents maybe of a certain age where it wasn't really a thing, and it might be quite hard for them to actually understand, like you're saying. It's only really, I guess that's a wake-up call in that example, isn't it? If you have a police knocking at the door, it helps with the understanding. And hopefully that's, and I can imagine the lack of understanding may be a reason why young people are texting as well, potentially. So it kind of all fits in place in terms of that story, doesn't it? I think that's pretty incredible to get those messages from parents as well.
Yeah, definitely.
We've spoken about kind of a lot of the service now for both Shout and the Mix, but what does the future hold? What is there anything, like in the plans we touched about the peer conversations?
Yeah.
But is there anything else?
It's sort of really things along sort of those lines, like, yeah, I think sort of like I was saying, developing just more services that meet people at different sort of stages, meeting them before that crisis point, just for like, and giving them the opportunity to, you know, look at sort of, I guess, like just resources, but like improving those resources where people can walk themselves through, you know, like how to, or just like how to deal with an emotion, or how to just become sort of more resilient. So that's actually something that's coming up with the Mix. We've done one around anxiety, but it's called the Mix Life Skills. And yeah, it's really cool. We've got actually one of our Shout volunteers is oh my gosh, I don't know which company he's with, but he's like makes comics, and these comics are amazing. And so he's done this whole kind of comic sort of story about anxiety, and just sort of like walks you through the feeling and like exactly, it was sort of the same sort of thing, like the situation and how like you're in all these situations and you don't feel good. Anxiety is what you're feeling, and this is how you can kind of deal with it. So sort of resources like that. I think it just sort of like, like I said, just expanding that sort of service offering. I think, at the moment we're sort of planning in 2027 to be supporting like 3 million young people. Wow. So that's sort of like where we're sort of headed with all the things we've sort of got coming up.
That's a huge amount.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of that as like percentage of population. That's you know, incredible that we can.
Yeah, and I guess it's like because it's all digital technology, you can sort of like reach people anywhere. They don't have to like come to you or anything like that. So it just makes everything a lot easier. Yeah,
brilliant. I guess one thing I'll ask you, actually, we've spoken about if people want to volunteer or anything like that. What about if people want to do fundraising, or if there's any events where people might be interested in attending? Is there anything like that, and how they go about that?
In terms of, I mean, so we've been working really hard to get lots of different running event sort of places that people can run with us, or...
So I saw you got a London Marathon place recently.
We've got one place, and then just I guess always trying to sort of build on that. That's the one everyone always wants.
My understanding is that's not an easy thing to achieve.
No, it's seriously not. It's really, really not easy to get places in that. Lots of different runs all around the country. What else? Oh my gosh, I used to work on all the fundraising side of things and write up all these pages. I mean, I think sometimes the most fun thing is coming up with your own fundraiser too. Like, I mean, well, that's what you've sort of done. But like you can run events as well, like have like a trivia night, or have, I don't know, like...
It could be anything, really.
Exactly. It can just be anything. Maybe you want to screen like a movie might be sort of related to mental health or something like that. We've had people organize somehow like their own marathons. I don't know how they've like blocked out like I don't know 20 something miles of space for people to run around, but people have done that as well.
That's amazing. I think it's really interesting, like you say. I obviously devised the row, and the reason I kind of went about it as it did, it ticked a lot of boxes for me, but partly was the length of time doing it. It fitted around my daily life, but interesting saying you could do anything like a film screening or a trivia night, whatever it may be. I think often if you have bigger ambitions, you can also do those things that help towards that larger effort. So, for example, with the row, I've got big ambitions of how much I can overall raise, but I am thinking of maybe I do something like a trivia night or a pub quiz or whatever to help with that overall total.
Yeah.
So I think often a lot of fundraisers don't necessarily think like that, because you think, oh no, it's just got to be donations, but actually doing events and things like that can really help go to that kind of bigger target.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like sometimes that's what can make the whole fundraising experience so much nicer. Like I know you're 100%. Putting in like a lot of work and it's a lot of effort, but you're here having this conversation, you've done all these other podcasts, and they're conversations that you might not otherwise have had.
Totally.
And then all the different events, and plus like just feeling the support. You were telling me earlier about your second cousin that has done like a call out to his friends and family, like telling them to fundraise, donate to your fundraiser.
Completely unexpected.
And just like feeling that support, I think must be so nice to know that people are behind you like that.
Yeah, and I think it's like it's kind of my network as well, but it kind of he's exposed that further to his network, which is kind of a large one for him. And I was totally not expecting it. He just put a video up on Facebook basically telling people to donate, and I think I got about 200 quid's worth of donations out of it, which was totally unplanned and unexpected, but hugely welcome. And I guess it's just I hate the term think outside the box, but I'm going to use it anyway. But just sort of think, how can I reach those networks? And again, I think the storytelling element for me really works, because that helps some of the messaging or reasons why I'm doing this resonate with other people, particularly people that don't know who I am. But then doing things like these conversations, or having an Instagram page where you're uploading it, people do get to know you even though I've not had a conversation with them. And I think that just helps maybe someone go, actually I'm going to put a tenner towards that, or whatever it may be. And I think maybe you have to be a certain type of person to get yourself out there to do it, but if anyone's interested in fundraising, I definitely would say have fun with it, get yourself out there. I'm very much one that is, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go all out and try as best I can, but it's about getting the message in different ways as well. And you're right, I think the biggest point you said there was it makes the journey more fun. I've had, sitting on a rowing machine has been very boring. And you don't just want to sit with the struggle days where you don't really want to do it all the time. I've been looking forward to this day. I've had a day with Rob behind the camera people, which is a really nice excuse to do, and it's all part of that journey. And just saying yes has been a great experience for me, but it's also maximised the fundraising as well, I would say. So
definitely
great benefit with that. Is there anything else you wanted to say about Shout the Mix or mental health innovations, or are you happy with everything we've kind of covered?
I've covered everything.
You get a good sense of it. Yeah, I think so. Okay, last question from me then. And I've asked all guests this. If you had any bit of advice for me in completing the challenge or helping me do that, what would that be? Again, another question without notice, I appreciate.
I think you've sort of almost already done it, right? By setting up the fundraiser and everything. You put yourself in a position where it's harder to back out of it.
There is that.
Any advice? I've never done that much rowing before. I'm so curious what everybody else said.
But pretty similar on a lot of them, actually. I think it's more I do spring the question on people, so they haven't thought out detailed answers, but often it is kind of just stick at it, do what you're doing sort of stuff. So I'm on that home stretch now, and I'll just keep doing that, I think.
It's been strong so far in every way, so honestly I have complete faith I didn't even realise you'd need encouragement, but I mean, I suppose,
Always.
yeah.
Well,
I believe in you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out today. We really appreciate it. I've definitely learned a lot more from before the conversation. So if anyone wants to get in touch, obviously the Shout website, whether that be for volunteering, fundraising or anything else. But thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tom, for everything.
And that was the interview. A big thank you to Grace for joining me today and talking through Shout and painting a picture of the amazing work they do. I took so much from our conversation and I'm in true admiration of everyone that volunteers and works at the charity. If you enjoyed this episode and want to follow my journey alongside seeing more conversations with interesting people about mental health, please consider liking this video, hitting the subscribe button and enabling the alert bell for the channel. I appreciate any support, whether that be donations, motivation in the comments, or sharing any of the Row content. As a reminder, the Challenge Just Giving page is in the description below, alongside other links, including the merchandise store. Thank you for joining me on this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.